commencement of this 8th Parliament, the posture of all of us, majority and minority, was consensus building. And as of today, nothing has changed. We still look forward to strengthening efforts aimed at consensus building. Unfortunately, yesterday, Honorable Mahama Yariga, who moved a private member's motion on the House floor, lost the vote, and a certain impression is being created as though the majority caucus was not in support of the good intent of Mr. Ayariga. Truth be told, the motion paper itself was very problematic. If you may recall, Mr. Speaker even overruled a preliminary objection, but urged on Honorable Ayariga to fine-tune the motion paper. Now, if you look at what he moved yesterday, and if you follow all our debates, we were simply saying that the substance of what he wanted to carry out was not clear. How do you, in one breath, invite government to take steps to absorb fees of public schools, public students in public and tertiary institutions, and in another breath you say government should consider support to private accredited tertiary institutions? The ambiguity in it was just too much. All we're saying is that if we really want to have a plan for the tertiary students in this COVID era, then we must sit together with the executive. This government is at its formative days. We don't even have a minister in place. And yesterday, Mr. Ayariga himself conceded in his argument that he is expecting government to let the stakeholders who are going to implement its policy on education to look into that. But the question is, why rise the government when you know that the government has not rolled out its plans for the educational sector? So we are of the view that, look, this whole thing has a fiscal impact on the economy. It comes at a cost. Whether you use the word suspension or absorption, you are virtually saying in practical terms that government take over the bill and pay. But already, the fees that students are required to pay, the various fees, the academic facility user fees, I've done some research. And I can tell you that way back in 2009, if you look at this, the Ghana Private Higher Education on the right, if you look at this report, government is taking 70%. So whatever bill that a student is given, whether a fresher or a continuing student, it is subsidized. That aspect must be properly put out for all of us to understand. So for our colleagues to create an impression that we do not support the urgent need to provide some relief for our students at the tertiary level is most misconceived. And again, to create the impression that we do not want to build consensus is also untrue. Because Honorable Ayerega himself did not. Proud to he filing his motion, he had already put it out in the public domain and sought to court public sympathy and was on that populist journey. If we really want to do something for the good of the people of Ghana, at a time that we all acknowledge that businesses are collapsing, at the time that we all acknowledge that businesses are suffering and people are becoming unemployed, your main stop is revenue. If you don't have, can you give? So all of these require a proper, a wholesale engagement. Question is the minority saying that we should increase taxation? They've made reference to VAT. Are they saying that we should take over full financing of tertiary education in this country and increase VAT to take care of it? Is that their argument? They have not put it out there. And we are saying that to avoid uncertainties and to avoid situations where you in one breath agree to be doing something when in real terms you don't have what it takes to do it, have a wholesale look at it. And that was the gravamen of our contention. We were not in to oppose, and any serious-minded Ghanaian who followed the debate on our side would have come to the realization that we wanted us to have a broader view of the matter. We wanted specificity. We wanted to know which item we could put across to the executive. And we also thought that the timing was not right. So, ladies and gentlemen, simply put, these were our concerns. And we would want the Ghanaian people to appreciate the fact that at the time that we were even talking about free SHS, and at the point that we were even implementing free SHS, our colleagues were still opposed to it, never believed that we could do it. So if there is any government or any political party to provide support in the area of education, we have demonstrated commitment, we have a track record, and will be the first to take action in that respect. So I would want everybody, students in particular, to know that this government cares. Parents should know that if any relief ought to be provided, it will be done in a manner that they would get a real benefit. After all, go to electricity. When NDC was in power in 2016, when Ghanaians were complaining about electricity bills, they said, what? The cost of energy was expensive. There was nothing they could do about it. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo came into office 2017 without any prompting. Household received rebates, industry received rebates, and when COVID came, again government announced further reliefs for electricity and water. So for anybody to create that impression that this government is not willing to help tertiary students, with all due respect, it's a mere political mischief, and anyone who attempts that must not be taken serious. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you. It's normally done. We will take your questions, and I crave your indulgence. If we can do one media house, one question, it will help all of us to leave here as soon as possible.
Colleague, the minority leader, indicated that the majority, the MP majority, had failed the litmus test of consensus building and cooperation, and that because you did not support them on this well-intentioned and good motion meant to bring relief to Ghanaian students, going forward, you should not expect any consensus and cooperation from them. How is the majority taking this?
Response to those who said your side of the house acted in bad faith, because from the very day that Speaker asked that both sides sit together and streamline the motion. It has always featured in the order paper in the same form and shape it came yesterday. But you never raised a point until the motion was finally moved. And then you brought in your argument that it lacks specificity, it was ambiguous, and that it was an invitation for the president to engage in an illegality. Why didn't you raise all these matters, even though you raised it on the first day, but Speaker shot it down and said the motion was proper before the House? Why didn't you bring all these ones over the period that it's addressed before the motion was finally taken yesterday? Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Is made on radio and by some people that, you know, in my work as a journalist, I've come into contact with, spoken with. And so what I hear is that your side perhaps didn't look at the issue on sympathetic grounds. Your side was interested in looking at the technicalities of things. What would you say to people who make such comments, that your side didn't really look at the issue as it was, as the fact that it pertained to something urgent on the ground now? Thank you.
Okay.
So, when you are talking about sympathy, I've already addressed major reliefs that demonstrate sympathy. Look at the support to the private sector. You are looking at the private sector, informal private sector, where through MPSSI, where through NEIP, where through MASLOC, within this COVID period, many of them were given the opportunity to access 2,000, 5,000, 1,000, 10,000 directly. And you see, it was structured in a manner that was open to every Ghanaian. It wasn't the case that party people should bring a list. You go online and you register with your Momo account and you receive it directly. As we speak, NPSSI is still disbursing. So the first point of sympathy is the effort by government to look at people's businesses. That was done. Electricity and water, particularly electricity. As for water, somebody can say that in my area there's no water. But what of electricity? Every one of you sitting here would attest to the fact that if in the past you were buying prepaid, say 100 Ghana, and it was lasting for 1 week, now it's taking over a month. It's fact. So with these two examples alone, it should tell you that government is committed to supporting Ghanaians in this situation we find ourselves. Now, if our colleagues have come up with a motion, which motion is not certain, you cannot go to the executive by saying that, oh, they should take steps to, in one breath, absorb fees of public tertiary institutions, and when it comes to the private tertiary institutions that have been accredited, they should provide them with some support. Which support? If there is any group that had acted in bad faith, it is our colleagues in the NDC. On the issue of my respected colleague Aaron Idrisu, according to you, he's saying that we failed the litmus test. I would say, yeah, not you, I'm saying according to you, I mean the question that came, that we failed the litmus test. Yesterday, I drew the attention of my colleague to Order 72. Look at what we did today in the House. 3 statements were taken and we contributed. People made input on COVID-19. Look at how free members were in lending support. I am saying that as parliamentarians, we have several tools at our disposal. One is question. He could have filed a question to ask what interventions government had put in place. Then government could have given specific responses. Another tool, which to me is the best option under the circumstance was a statement under Order 72. Which statement we could have debated? Some of you have been part of parliamentary business for many years, and you know that we've had several situations where statements have ended up being referred to the executive for action. So we are saying that if really we're talking about consensus building, if really we are talking about carrying all of us along, the posture they took was not the right posture, especially when we kept raising issue of how vague the whole statement was. In any event, if the statement, the motion was not vague and had every ingredient in it that makes it good for purpose, why was it amended? Why was it amended? Why did he withdraw that motion? Why did he move a new motion? So you should understand where we are coming from. We've not taken an entrenched position. Well, for political convenience, somebody can say what he wants to say. But I have told you that as a party in government, everything of ours shows that we are more committed to social intervention policies. Our colleagues have ruled this country for 16 years. They cannot boast of a single social intervention policy or program they initiated and implemented successfully. They have none. I challenge them to give me one. But we have several of them to our credit. And the need to look at funding of tertiary education is already on the table. Don't forget that government has announced two major reliefs for students. One is a scholarship program that has been expanded, that those who cannot afford to apply. That is one major effort at supporting students. Again, government has waived the requirement for a guarantor or a guarantor when you are applying for the student loan scheme. So that is also another door that has been opened. In any event, let us be honest with ourselves. Perhaps collectively we can take that step. Can we even make some inquiries from our various public universities? So far, what is the percentage of students that are paid in our public universities? Let's look at that as well. So, are students accessing the scholarship? Are students accessing their loan schemes? Are there impediments in their way? Is it becoming difficult? Is it being awarded on whom you know basis? Are people being asked to provide party cards before they get the support? If these come up, then we know that yes, the announcement made, the scholarship, the loan scheme, students are really not accessing it. I know, if they are proud to this, a lot of students have benefited from government scholarship in my constituency, proud to this major announcement. And perhaps you and I can begin asking students who have applied, who have the real need and have applied, whether they were denied, or those who previously would have had to go and look for guarantors are still being asked to get guarantors before they access student loan scheme. So don't let us forget about these two major interventions made by government. These are very critical. So it means that already government has been doing something positive to help students. It's not new. But if you want us to go beyond this, then it is important to look at the numbers. That is all we say, nothing more.
Okay, thank you.
Accused members from the majority side of coming in their numbers just before the voice vote. That's how come the majority won the vote. So what's your response to that?
Well, just to add up to my colleague Asa Seman, the minority leader yesterday indicated that if this is how you are going to set a tone, that after every debate you call for a voice vote, then they are going to call for that every day when you are going to call for that after every debate. I mean, how is your position on that?
I do believe that the minority introduced this motion just to score a political point. Thank you.
After the other. It's been thread. Remember what happened on the 7th? Yeah. All the noise. We all know in parliamentary enterprise, rules are always subject to 3 language. If there is any bad faith posture, it's coming from our colleagues. In one breath, they argue that the law must take its course to the fullest. When it doesn't suit them, they say conventions and practices. We have been consistent. Follow all the arguments so far. You will realize that they have been that inconsistent. Day one, when they wanted to have their way on the election of speaker, you know what happened? Whereas we were all calm, gentle on our side, they decided to take over seats, be assaulting people, harassing people, pushing people, disrupting the whole process. They had their way. When we all agreed that appointment committee, per the rule, it's a 25-member committee. The chair, who is the speaker, is not a member. They say, oh, no. The practice has been. And if you follow the argument on the floor, when Aaron Idrisu moved the motion and I seconded with my reservations, they came back. This time, they were not talking about law. They were not talking about our rules. They said practices and conventions. So, this is the new minority we have. They will threaten you. If you don't do this, then I'll do that. Then I will ambush you. Come on, this is not patriotism. This is not patriotism. Each time you make reference to, and it is 137. If you don't do this, you won't do that. So, are you saying that you are going to frustrate government, or as Mr. Speaker put it, are you going to carry out an obstructionist agenda? Is that what you intend doing? No. We are saying that let us all come to the table, putting all the cards on the table. Make available all the cards. This is what we keep saying. And nothing more. As to whether it was a trap, well, I would say that it was a well-rehearsed partisan political agenda to achieve a certain convenience. And that is all. Because to the extent that the whole thing was out there in the media before even the motion could be admitted and argued, should tell you a lot. So, as to minority accusing us that we brought members in, you see, once again, our colleagues are always talking about others not being sincere and others being accusing people, calling people names. Proceedings were live. The proceedings of yesterday was live on TV. You were there. See, look out for their deputy whip. Honorable, is it Doyo? She was whipping members. Look to the right of minority leader. All of a sudden, those seats were full. So, what is this accusation? In any event, did we push for a decision to be taken? We did not. When Mr. Speaker inquired from both of us, we said, Mr. Speaker, we've left it into your able hands. Mr. Speaker had his own views and later said, okay, I will put the question. So I don't want our colleagues to take it that it is a good intention that has been thrown away. No. I sitting here, my colleague here, we all get the pressure on us to pay school fees. All of you are parents. So We, oh, your parents, maybe not at the tertiary level, your children may be in KG, and maybe those who have not married are in the process of, or they are even taking care of some other children. You know, so all I'm trying to say is that they need to take care of people, especially in this situation. It's a call that no one would want to escape because it has become a necessary evil the person cannot afford. But in so doing, you must look at what you can do, else you will choke. If we don't get the numbers right and we say social intervention, then you are just going on, going on, going on. At the end of the day, don't forget that for every expenditure, you must fund it. For every expenditure, you must look for funding. What are you going to do if you don't have it? So let us sit properly. It's not about accusing each other, but let us look at the real numbers and see how we can add on to the steps we've already taken in terms of the scholarship, in terms of this loan scheme. Let us see what we can do in addition. That is what we say.